Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 114. That's pretty Puvi. Recorded on October 2nd, 2020 from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the news.
Man, we have got a lot to talk about this week, so let's just get right to it. Zoho CRM Blueprint 3.0 was released. We talk about these dot releases that we get from Zoho that I don't really know exist, but evidently they do have them for certain things, and this is one of them. So Blueprint 3.0, it looks pretty interesting. I mean, you deal with these every day. What are your thoughts on it?
Yes, there's a couple kind of nice things about this. I'll quickly run through the summary of each of the key items, and then highlight a couple that I think will help a lot of people out. In Blueprints, you can set up SLAs, basically saying, something should only be in a certain status for, 1 day or 3 days. Previously, you could only trigger email notifications if something had broken SLA. Now you can trigger a task or a custom function or a webhook or really any of the standard workflow actions if you have breached your SLA on a certain item. You can now do same state looping, which basically means that each different step in the blueprint is a state, and previously each transition had to go to a new state. Now you could actually have a loop in one state. So the example that they give, which is a good one here, is maybe your state is attempted to contact, and you could loop on that state with a button that would say retry contacting. Right, so you don't have to actually make a loop of states. You can just keep everything in one state and have a action that happens that stays in that one state.
That's a relatively big one too.
It is. You're now able to also set up that you have to add a tag on certain transitions, where previously you could only do a note or an attachment. You can set up automatic transitions, which this is a big one. Basically, this is saying, maybe after a certain period of time, you want to automatically move the record into a new state. Right. Previously, you'd have to kind of layer on some workflows to accommodate this, right, to kind of manage this process, because the blueprint didn't really have anything for it. And, one thing with that is then you're spreading your automations between this blueprint and between your workflows, makes it a little bit harder to manage. So a lot of those workflows now can just be rolled into a, specific blueprint action. You're also able to control a little bit more about basically entering things into a blueprint. This is mostly a quality of life improvement. Basically what this means is, previously the way that this would work is that, when you make a new blueprint, it's not going to automatically apply to records that already exist in the system. So, if you had, state A as one of your options in the blueprint, and you had 10 deals that were already in state A, if you implement this blueprint, it's not going to grab all of those records and enter them in by default. And this is basically a way to say, okay, I've made my blueprint. Now go ahead and enter all records that meet these criteria to the blueprint. So that, at least selfishly, this is something that we have to do with kind of a silly workaround right now for our own clients. So that's a huge one, at least. Thinking about it selfishly, that helps us when we implement a blueprint system that, may have not had one previously. Overall, just a super nice set of updates. I think the big ones for me in this is the same state looping, because it's really common that in some type of lead nurture blueprint or even a deal nurturing blueprint that you're going to want to have some type of follow-up process. And, you basically used to have to build these kind of redundant set of statuses that something would move through as you're following up. And, you no longer have to do that now. And then those automatic transitions are just super, super nice, because it's just not rare that you'd have to implement workflows around that to make sure that nothing sits in a certain status for too long. So being able to just automate that just directly within the blueprint, manage everything in one place is super, super nice for making sure that the system is easy to manage.
Yeah, Blueprint's getting more and more powerful, and this is probably one of the bigger updates they've had to it in quite a while, I think. When we look at this, and so maybe that's why it got the .3.0 release. And another big update, and man, was this one really needed. Zoho Mail which has been getting an awful lot of love lately from the Zoho team. A lot of big news coming out of this. We had full IMAP. You can use it as an IMAP client, which is, turned out great for us. I think we're digging back into it now. But the mail admin console was old. Quite frankly, extremely functional though. It just, it would just looked like it was written in 1995 and hadn't been updated since then. And it was really just kind of, hardcore to dig around. And I think a lot of people they have trouble finding it because there's no way to get to the admin panel from Zoho Mail. You actually have to type mailadmin.zoho.com.
Mm-hmm.
But they gave it a super, super nice overhaul. I mean, it's a big refresh, and it's really easy to get to things now. It's just easier to use all the way around. And they're giving you a super nice dashboard, which can kind of tell you everything that's going on just in one snapshot, who's doing what. So kudos to the Zoho Mail team. They just continue to make a lot of great improvements here, and this whole admin panel was a really good thing.
Yeah, and this was one that, like you mentioned, was just kind of screaming for a redo. Just with all the work they've been doing in their UI kind of across the board and improving all their separate apps, that one was one that seemed to have been left, maybe a decade behind there. So huge improvement that'll make that way easier to use.
Yeah, so I really take your time, check it out. It's interesting. They're using the same kind of a button that they have on the CRM now, which is, switch to new version. It's funny. I still see a lot of people when we go and they look at their CRMs, they're still on the old version. That little button's never been clicked, but switch to the new version. This one's well worth it. Also, there was a press release put out by Net2Phone, which is another voice over IP provider that provides communication solutions, and they are now part of the Zoho's telephony integration. So it's kind of a joint press release that went out. So welcome Net2Phone to the Zoho telephony community. But it's good to see these in here. I know we're constantly looking. I haven't taken a look at this one yet. So many of these providers use different methods to integrate with Zoho. Some of them completely don't need any type of Zoho integration whatsoever. So, we'll see how this one looks, and hopefully it's good. All right, and then moving on to the next story, Zoho Writer has gotten a new feature called signature blocks, and this is kind of interesting. I actually like it a lot. I actually have done this. You take it, you sign your name on a piece of paper, you take an image of that, you make that image, and I kind of have it sitting aside. And sometimes I get documents that just, need to have my signature on it, and they're not digital signatures. It just kind of needs to be there, whether it's a letter you're sending out and you kind of want to have it a signature on it or whatever. Well, they're now allowing you to kind of store this. So they're going to store your signature in the cloud, hopefully encrypted. But, and anytime you just want to drop your signature into a document, you can. You can just click on it, and it's gonna drop it right in for you. So it's a nice little feature. Someone must have asked for it. I mean, because it just kind of came out of the blue here, but I like it. And as you can see, I got a little pun in here. To be clear, it doesn't block your signature; it inserts it. It's called signature block. You like that?
Very nice.
All right. Yeah, I try, man. I really do. All right. And then moving on with more news. This is a crazy one. So Zoho is ending support for old browser versions on October 15th. And man, if you go to the link to this chart, they're going way back. So, the current version that Zoho was supporting was all the way back to 49 on Chrome, and now you can go all the way up to 73. And I think we're in the hundreds right now on Chrome.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where it is. So they're doing nice. This is kind of something that just has to happen. But it is strange when all of a sudden you do come across someone just using a super old browser that doesn't support anything, and they never get upgraded. I mostly see this with people that are using on Edge. For the most part, old Internet Explorer kind of thing, which is renamed
Mm-hmm.
Edge, and you don't see much of it other than that. You got nothing?
I got nothing.
Okay, you're saving it up for the next story.
Yep.
Oh man, this one is kind of cool. So Zoho has created its own font, and it's called Puvi. I think I'm pronouncing that right, but This has been something that we've kind of noticed that's been going on. They've got this logo-linism where they're changing all the logos around. And the fonts, we've actually commented on this, has kind of been changing on the CRM. We see it change to this, we see it change. It's kind of been bouncing around. I don't know if they've just been testing in real time with this or not. But they are now basically rolling out a new font to basically all of their applications, I believe, and everything they do. And once it's been completely rolled out, they're going to actually make it a public font that anybody can use. But I think we all looked at this and we like it, including our design head.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty slick and similar to how, with their logo-linism, they have a lot of rationale kind of for why they made certain design choices and why they went this way. The article that they post about it's a quick read, it's pretty good. Kind of just defines what they were going for here. But yeah, overall, super nice, very modern looking font. It'll be nice when they're just kind of standardized across all the different applications. One of the things that we were talking about before we started the show was, I wonder how many unique fonts there are across all the different, 45 Zoho applications, right? So kind of consolidating all that, making it look and feel as much like one consolidated suite of applications is going to be, really nice to see.
Yeah, it is. And, Zoho doesn't really do anything without putting a ton of thought into it, I would think. And if you read this article, I mean, it's crazy. The winner was a font that had an angle of 23.5 degrees, and it turns out that the 23.5 degrees is the angle at which the Earth's axis is tilted on its orbital plane. So they named it for the Tamil word for Earth, which is Puvi. So it's pretty good. But man, it's a nice looking font. That's pretty Puvi there, huh?
I will say, they also put out a little video walking through the font.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at that. It's actually one a little further down the page where they link out to YouTube. It's a little bit frantic of a video. I have to say, you don't really get too much of a look at the font in use. Very much flashing one screen to the next, super, super quick. But, kind of a cool little video that shows it in a lot of different iterations here where, kind of different bold characteristics, different ways that this font could look in different usages. Kind of a nice little video to see it in action, but maybe watch it on half speed because it is definitely flying.
I think if you suffer from epilepsy, avoid it at all costs. I think it could be bad. Oh man. All righty. And then Zoho Recruit is now integrated with HackerEarth. And I hadn't heard of this, but evidently HackerEarth is kind of the job board for developers. And so if you're trying to hire a developer and you're up in, I guess, anywhere, this HackerEarth site seems to be the one that a lot of people use. So this was kind of a big deal, especially for those of people who are using Zoho Recruit. There you go. This integration now is, I mean, man, they've added so many job boards to this. There's just another one, but more of a, point solution, but pretty good, I think.
Yeah, and one of the nicest things about HackerEarth is the bank of assessment tools that they have. There's a lot of standardized assessments. So like if you needed someone who was, a system admin level of knowledge of SQL, right? They're going to have some standardized assessments that you can provide people they can take. And those assessment tools kind of just route directly into Zoho Recruit to kind of improve on, the assessments that you're able to build in there. So I think specifically from the perspective of, dialing in the different assessments that you may want, this is going to be a really, really slick integration.
Yeah, good stuff all the way around. So let's move on to our mobile news now. This is just Zoho continues to build on this. We've talked about it before. Zoho, big users of Apple products. And so now they actually have an app called Doc Scanner. This is the logo. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, this is the actual logo for it. And they've been improving on this and improving on this and improving on this. And, every time a new version of iOS comes out, they're taking the OCR and everything from there. So, now they've basically just taken it. So now you can make, app clips and widgets and all those kind of things that that Apple actually added in this iOS 14 and iPadOS 14, and they're allowing you to take advantage of it. And I love to see this development because most a lot of app developers are not as quick to come out and jump on the new features, but they seem to be just as soon as something comes out, they're adopting it. It's good
Yeah, I
stuff.
mean, it's almost instant. I remember when I forget which iOS update it was, but it was the one that enabled, dark mode for basically all their apps. And within
Yeah.
like a day or two, every single Zoho app that could support dark mode had it enabled for iPhone. It was similar when they did the PDF scanning and the OCR, just Zoho is basically lockstep right behind them, making sure everything's up to best practices.
Yeah, and they did that with when Apple released Catalyst, which allows you basically to take applications on the iPad and port them to OS X. They were the first on that, and all those applications kind of rolled out. And some of them, I mean, there are a lot of people I know that actually like the iPad versions of a lot of Zoho apps better than they do the desktop versions. And so we've had a lot of clients just running that. So it gives you some options. So it's a good way to go about and look at that. All right, and what does that brings us to our implementation of the week? What do you got, Tyler?
Yes, this is one that is kind of a specific use case for when you might be processing some sales on the phone or in person, driving them through the CRM. And basically what this is a little custom button inside of the CRM that you can use to spin up an invoice and capture payment information on the fly, from whichever record you're working within in the CRM. So for us, we implemented this in the deal or opportunity record. You could drop this into a contact, an account, really anywhere. And what this does is that when you press the button, it'll automatically generate a invoice, kind of a templated invoice over in Books, and associate it to whichever record you clicked on the button in the CRM. So if it was a deal or a contact, right, you're going to get that association between the two applications. And then we have a little open URL script in it that will grab the payment URL of that invoice that was just created and actually open it up dynamically for whoever pressed the button. So that kind of just allows you to instantly spin up this invoice and be ready to accept payment over the phone, just with one click from inside the CRM. The one limitation to it is that it does work best if you're having one button that creates a specific invoice. So, if you had maybe 5 different services you were selling, you might want to have 5 buttons. We're working on making it a little more logical. Maybe certain products will be added based on some info in the record. So, we might do an update on this one later. But for right now, it basically gives you a quick and easy way to spin up an invoice and present that payment link to the sales reps so that they're able to capture, quickly and painlessly.
Zoho Flow, custom functions, both?
It's all custom functions on this one, just directly through Deluge.
No flow.
No flow for this.
Well, that's probably good. Nice. We've been doing a lot of interesting things with that. I mean, a lot of times, one thing that's come up, I don't know if maybe you can tell me, do we finally have a solution for people that want to present an estimate where it breaks things down like, hey, here are your one-time charges, here are your ongoing charges. I know we've been doing it using subforms and then writing it out to a separate thing, but then we have to take that and write it back to Books to kind of make it all work.
Not quite. Yeah, Zoho Books, unfortunately, doesn't have the kind of like subtotals on an estimate or an invoice, unfortunately.
Well, I know
wish, because we have a couple clients who'd love that.
I mean, but we're not happy with any of our workarounds right now.
Not particularly, not for like a one view. You're looking at one invoice and you see, this set of products totals to this set totals here, and then here's your, invoice total as a whole. There isn't quite anything for that yet.
Yeah, it gets a little messy. I mean, I know we're doing some of the things, sending it out using web merge or sending it over to mail merge and doing that kind of thing, creating it separately, but it just, at least what the client can see, looks pretty good. But anyway, this reminded me of that. Mm-hmm. Hey, and that brings us to other things we're not happy with. Wow, I just wanted to bring this one up. So one of the things we noticed here, so if you remember, we talked about Bigin last week, and it now has full Zoho CRM synchronization. So for those of you who don't remember, Bigin is kind of this starter level CRM, real baseline. And if you kind of look at it, it can be really clean just from a salesperson perspective. And I thought, well, it might be nice just to try it out, and maybe I could just try to live in there for a little bit and see what that was all about. So I tried to do the synchronization. So a couple things to note. So Zoho team, pay attention. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm not going to show you, but what you can see is that all of the deal stages are here, but none of these deal stages are actually the deal stages we use here at Zenatta. Now, if I do click on the list view, all of the deals would show up. But the fact of the matter is none of the deals show up because I don't have any stages that are named these stages. If you go in the back and you try to either rename a stage or create a stage that actually existed over in CRM, it won't work. It basically says, no, that stage already exists, so you can't have it because it exists because you ported the things over. So it seems that prior to the synchronization, you would want to actually go create all of your deal stages. And you need to be, I would do a copy paste because they need to be exact in order for your deal stages to show up. So that would be kind of the number one thing you need to do. It also doesn't copy over any of your custom views. So you'd have to completely redo your custom views. That's fine. I think the biggest problem, and I want to point this out, is that when you are doing the synchronization and you kind of go into the integration section and you go to Zoho CRM, it's not like we would normally do it. So what you have to do is you have to go in and do one at a time. So first you do contacts and companies, and then you get a little activate button that shows up on deals and products, and you can then go ahead and activate that one and sync it. Well, when I got to activities, the sync failed, and that's it. You're done. It never allows you to. It never allows you to resync again. Everything else gets turned off. You can't. Everything just stops at that period of time. You can't go any further. You're just done. So I'm probably going to delete the integration, try again, see what that gets me. But this is one of those things, we talk about this a lot. When Zoho first releases products, you've really got to give them some time. And this is an integration that they just released and evidently never tried. They just must have just thrown it out there one time and actually didn't try to work with it in the real world. So be careful if you're going to try to implement this integration, because it's a little messy.
Yeah, and I think there's just a very specific order of operations I think you may need to follow. And if you don't, then you can't really retcon it later, which I think it wouldn't be a big issue if you were able to then add those deal stages. You would notice and you'd go, oh, forehead, I need to go in there and, update these. But once you've done it, you're locked in and you can't really add those stages or customize it to kind of fix that.
Yeah, so it's kind of dead right now. And I don't even know, I would imagine, I don't even know how to fix it. We've got a ticket open with Zoho and we'll see if they get back to us on this or not, because it's, anyway, a little messy. So a little public service announcement from us here over at CRM Zen Show.
We'll probably expect an update on that one, because I think at the end of the day, it still could be a pretty cool app. The mobile interface is really nice and you get the widgets from it already in iOS 14, but if it's not able to properly sync to, your real CRM, which is still going to be your home base, then, it's not really feasible.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, let's move on to this week's reads. This is kind of an odd title. It's I love this site at CRM Buyer. It appears that a lot of CRMs are hiring them to do a lot of research and things like that. Zoho is one of them. And they've got CRM's COVID opportunity is the name of this article. What I found really interesting about it is that they did a survey for Zoho. They did a study where they wanted to, talk to customer-facing employees. And, they found that they liked their jobs and they felt the managers were doing a good job and they felt that they understood the expectations. But also in the Zoho study, the biggest complaint was the quality of the technology that they had to use to do their customer-facing jobs. And now that more and more people are home, which is the COVID opportunity here, and having to engage using these kind of tools, the idea is that, whoever has the best tools will win at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's definitely a big one. We've seen, we've been probably busier than ever since everyone has had to be, working from home, where it's really become, for some people a stress test of these systems, and for others kind of the, awakening moment where, it dawns on you like, yep, I really do need this stuff. But, those systems, once you're all working remote, become just so much more important. If you can't communicate and track things in a way that's, decentralized and able to be viewed from no matter where you are, you just kind of put yourself at risk. I think there's not having these cloud systems carries a certain amount of risk nowadays. And I think that the whole situation with COVID has really highlighted that, what type of risk you run by not being able to work from anywhere.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I think it's stressing a lot of really, really old tools as well. Things that maybe legacy systems that everybody wasn't using, just a few people were, and it's time to make the upgrade. So nice
Yep. If you're
article.
still using that old VPN, it might be time to start looking at some simpler ways of getting things done.
And over at Zenatta.com, we have got our whole slew of articles. We've got a nice one on how to use Zoho Sprints. So if you haven't used Zoho Sprints, it's Zoho's agile project management tool, and it's pretty nice. And so we'll step you through bit by bit, kind of talk about all the overall features and what we can do and how you want to use it and why you might want to use it. Additionally, we had our webinar this week, and that is now available over on YouTube and on our website. So we did it on Zoho Connect. It was overview and best practices. If you missed it, we pretty much covered everything you could cover on Connect. And there's a lot. One of the things I noticed when I was going through and doing the total overview of the product is just how many little different buttons there are just on the main homepage. I mean,
It's a lot.
It was crazy amount of stuff that it does, and it's a unique application, and I like it. We use it for a variety of different things. So I think that's worth taking a look at. And then we've got our resource guides. We continue to dig these up. I'm always amazed we can find them. Zoho had put out one called Bad Email Marketing, which is pretty interesting. It's an 18-page guide on kind of how to avoid bad email marketing. And then another one on preparing for the upcoming holidays. So two kind of rather different types of guides that we found from from the Zoho archive. And then I think cool one I wanted to talk about is we actually have relaunched the entire CRM Zen Show on crmzen.com, and the website has gone live, and we've got a whole lot going on over there. So before, we kind of had everything sitting on Zenatta, but we really decided to treat the CRM Zen Show as its own kind of news organization, if you will. And so we wanted to separate it out so it's a little separate from Zenatta. And I like this. So what we're doing over here is, if you go over to the site, you'll notice there is an entire news section. And basically everything we just talked about on this show, we're just putting links to them as they happen during the week. The way the show used to be built was Thursday nights, Tyler and I would spend 3, 4, 5 hours reading all through all the stories, figuring out what's going to go in the show notes. Now it's just kind of every day, spend an hour and go through, put them up, and have the quick links out to the articles in here. So everything that we talked about on this show, we've just been posting in real time as Zoho releases that. So if you want the very latest Zoho news, just go to CRM Zen and you can look at it there. And then, we got to make it prettier, but we've basically embedded a calendar. It's a Google Calendar that is every single event that is coming up in the world of Zoho. So yes, we have our webinar and we have the CRM Zen Show, but we also have, if you kind of scroll back here, Zoho on Wednesday they had a webinar on Power Up Your Unified Business Analytics with robust data pipelines. They had an entire thing on Zoho Sprints. They did one on do-it-yourself mobility apps. They did on the first, they did AI enabling your business. Well, we're putting all the links in here. So every day we go, as soon as Zoho says, hey, here's a new event, or if one of Zoho's partners has a new event, we're dropping their webinar in here, and we're keeping it so that hopefully you've got this single place where you can come and find out anything that Zoho's putting on or one of the partners is putting on that has to do with Zoho. And I think that's going to be pretty cool as well. And then, of course, our entire episodes, all of our episodes are here. So if you ever want to go in, we've got the direct video, we've got the audio feed, and then all of the show notes as well are tied in there. And then I think the most important part is we're actually going to do a store, which is coming soon. And we'll have t-shirts and coffee mugs and some other stuff. But we're doing this. We're doing some stuff with some commerce, and we're just kind of a bit of fun there. But CRM Zen, I'm really happy we got that up. It's going to be a good thing, I think.
I think it'll be nice. And it kind of tries to solve that big problem of there's so many different channels that Zoho will publicize news or events or updates through, whether it's their forums, each app specific newsletters, their help centers, kind of all this different stuff flows out all these different ways. So we're trying to scour everything and bring it into one place so that, you don't have to do the hunting and pecking that we do, throughout the week.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us to our app of the week, which is Shopify. So the entire CRM Zen site is built on Shopify. So one of our consultants, Tavin, is not only a Zoho developer, but he is a extremely good web developer, both in WordPress and Shopify and other things. And, as we went to build it, Zoho Sites just still isn't there, and Zoho Commerce isn't there. And, and if you start looking at things, you can say, well, WordPress is there, and you could use WooCommerce, and WooCommerce is free, and that's great. But historically, what we've constantly run into is that the integrations with WooCommerce are iffy at best. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. They can just be a bit problematic. And the only, other than Zoho Commerce, which of course has good integration, but it's very hard to make look pretty and do some things with. The only, I think, e-commerce solution that works seamlessly with Zoho is really Shopify. And so we built that entire thing on Shopify, and man, it is slick. I mean, it's not cheap, Tyler, but it is just so well done. And it should be. It's all they do.
Yep, it's one of those places where, and we talk about this sometimes, some of the point solutions where, if all you do is build forms, then, that type of format might do some special stuff that you just can't get anywhere else. And for Shopify, all they do is e-commerce. And so, there's a reason that they kind of have that king spot in the market. Whether it's their tight integrations, they're easy to work with, overall, just an excellent way to run an online store or even just a general website.
Yeah, it is. And Zoho has written 5 really tight connectors that are all in the Zoho marketplace. Their desk, campaigns, analytics, CRM, and inventory. They just work really well. So it's great. And I tell you what, give it a try if you're looking for a commerce solution that really integrates extremely well with Zoho. I can't recommend it enough. Like I say, the only thing about the it's not cheap part. It's kind of crazy because every single add-on for Shopify is a monthly subscription. That's kind of, if you wanted something like, hey, I don't really like the way the blogs look, so I want to get a little blog plugin that'll change it. Sure, that's $15 a month for someone's little, I don't like the way the editor works. Yeah, it's $15. Everything seems to be $15, by the way. That seems to be the magic number, $14.99 to get it to work. But other than that, really can't recommend it highly enough. It's great. All right. And then our tip and trick of the week, Zoho Workdrive sharing settings. Found this over in the Zoho community. If you don't go to the Zoho community, man, I will tell you what, it's just go over there and check it out. There's so much great stuff going on. Anyway, this one was just posted 4 days ago, and the titles retain complete control of your data, even when it's stored in a shared space. So if you've got a team folder inside of Zoho Workdrive, well, it's pretty easy to basically lock that down so you can do anything you want. So worth taking a look at this article.
And that's one of the places where I think Workdrive really does a great job is just all these different types of permissions and sharing that you can set up. It's quick and painless to do and really allows you to control that database, because when you have all these different documents, you want to make sure that everything's set up right. And if you have some type of spreadsheet in there and maybe it has everyone's quotas, well, you better know what all your permissions are around that quota document. Make sure that it's not sitting in a folder that's public or, shareable to the wrong people.
Yeah, and it just, again, the level that, they've taken this Workdrive to the point where it's just as good as anything else now. And they actually fixed that sharing issue. I don't know if we've moved it from maybe to yes yet, but I think Workdrive needs to move up in our resources library, because you actually now can just go ahead and share out without anybody having to log in or have an account. So pretty good stuff. All right, Tyler. So that brings us to Q&A. So we actually have a few people listening in. Glad you guys could be here this week. So Kevin asks, do they still have restrictions that you can't run the same custom function for different transitions? This goes back to talking about blueprints earlier in the show. What do you know, Tyler?
I believe so. I don't believe that these updates would have changed that restriction. It does add some more ways that you can trigger the functions, but to my knowledge, this would not change the restriction around kind of setting up those functions specific to the transitions.
Okay. Well, there you go. We'll take a look at that and get back definitively, but I think you're right. All right, man. And that is a wrap. We want to thank everybody for listening. If you've got questions, you can send them to us over at info@zenatta.com. We need to change that to info@crmzen.com soon. Or just head over to CRM Zen and drop us a line over there.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to the stories we discussed today. You can also follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.